So you've probably heard the whole AI versus artist debate, right? It's everywhere. But today, we're going to move right past that. We're diving into something way more interesting, a partnership. A future where human creators, people with incredible vision, are using artificial intelligence not as a replacement, but as a seriously powerful new paintbrush. This is all about how storytellers are finally getting the tools to bring their worlds to life. And in the process, they're building a brand new future for animation. Let's get into it.
Okay, so here's our roadmap for today. We're going to start by looking at a pretty painful past of representation and animation. Then we'll see how artists fought back by building a whole new visual language. After that, we'll bring in the new kid on the block, AI, and see how it's both a challenge and an ally. Then we'll cover how creators are mastering that tool. And finally, we'll look at the incredible future this human-machine team-up is building.
All right, first up, you know that old saying, you can't know where you're going until you know where you've been? Well, that is absolutely true here. To really get why the stuff happening today is so revolutionary, we have to rewind and look at the history of Black characters in animation. And just a heads up, a lot of it is pretty rough.
Wow. This quote just cuts right to the bone, doesn't it? It perfectly captures the core of the struggle. For decades, the problem wasn't just how Black characters were drawn, it was that they were barely there at all. And if they were never the hero. It was this constant fight just to be present, to be the main character of the story.
So this timeline really lays out a century of struggle. It all starts back in the 1910s with these just awful stereotypes lifted straight from minstrel shows. But then something even weirder happened. Instead of fixing the problem and drawing better characters, the industry's solution was to just make them vanish. This created a massive, decades-long void. It really wasn't until very recently, with absolute game-changers like Spider-Verse, that we started to see this incredible renaissance.
And here's something that's crucial to understand. These early, offensive designs were also just lazy. They were production shortcuts. Features like donut lips were just a crude, quick way for animators to signal this character is Black. And what's really fascinating in a sad way is that early anime artists in Japan had very little real-world exposure, so they just imported these harmful visual shortcuts from the American cartoons they were watching. This whole situation led scholars to coin a really powerful term, culture side. Think about it. When civil rights groups started calling out these caricatures, the big studios didn't respond by creating better, authentic characters. No, their response was to just stop drawing them altogether, a deliberate erasure. This created a cultural vacuum in American animation that lasted for an entire generation.
But, out of that empty space, something incredible started to grow. It was a powerful response, led by creators themselves. Black artists and their allies basically said, fine, if you won't represent us correctly, we'll do it ourselves. They didn't just ask for better representation, they started to build it piece by piece, from the ground up.
And this is the absolute key to the whole thing. Real representation isn't about taking a standard character model and just using a paint bucket to change the skin tone. That's a trap, and it doesn't work. The real solution required a fundamental architectural shift, literally rethinking the basic rules of how you draw faces, how you construct hair, and how you animate bodies.
And just look at how specific and technical this got. This is true craftsmanship. Instead of that generic sharp line for a nose, artists developed techniques for drawing a wider bridge and a rounded tip. Instead of a single dash for a mouth, they created a two-line structure that gives the feeling of full lips without ever falling into caricature. This wasn't just random sketching. It was like a forensic reconstruction of character design.
Okay, this part is just brilliant, because it's where art meets science. You've probably seen it before. A character with a darker skin tone that just looks kinda dull or ashy. That's usually because the artist just added black or gray to the base color to make a shadow. But the pro technique is something called hue shifting. You actually change the color of the shadow, shifting it towards a deep red or a navy blue. This mimics the way light actually interacts with melanin and blood vessels, giving the skin a vibrant, living glow. It's genius.
And then you have hair, which is a whole different ballgame in terms of physics. See, straight hair has drag. It flows behind a person as they move. But coily and textured hair has impact. It tends to move as a more unified shape, with its own tension and bounce. So artists learn to focus on the silhouette, using bumpy or jagged lines to hint at the texture instead of drawing every single strand. And of course, you add those crucial cultural details, like a sharp lineup, that instantly make a character feel real and grounded.
So for decades, human artists are in the trenches, building this incredible new architecture of authenticity. And then, a brand new player walks onto the field. Artificial intelligence, a tool with almost unbelievable power, but a tool that's carrying all the ghosts of our biased past right along with it. And here is the fundamental problem in a nutshell. AI models learn from the data we feed them. And what is that data? It's a giant snapshot of the internet, of digital art, of our entire recorded history, warts and all. All that underrepresentation and all those stereotypes we just talked about, yeah, that's in the training data.
This is what the experts call algorithmic bias. In simple terms, because the AI has seen way more images of Caucasian or East Asian characters in its training data, that's its default, that's its comfort zone. So when you ask it to create black characters, it often struggles because it hasn't seen enough high-quality examples. It can even fall back on those same old mistakes like creating those flat, ashy skin tones that human artists work so hard to fix.
And here's what that actually looks like. You type a simple prompt, like a beautiful anime hero. The AI will, almost every time, give you a character with light skin. But it can get even more problematic. A vague prompt like a black person can cause the AI to pull from datasets where that term is disproportionately linked to negative things like crime or poverty from news archives. The machine is a flawed mirror.
But this is where the story gets really interesting. This is the pivot. The most visionary creators today aren't just throwing this flawed tool in the trash. No way. They're figuring out how to become its director. They're learning how to grab this new digital paintbrush and force it to paint the pictures that they see in their heads.
The solution is a technique that's being called high-signal prompting. The basic idea is that you cannot be vague with the machine. The heart, the soul, the vision, that has to come from you, the human creator. Your job is to feed the AI hyper-specific, culturally rich, descriptive language that basically strong-arms it away from its default settings and toward the authentic vision you have.
So what does that look like in practice? Well, instead of just saying black woman, a creator might use a Yoruba woman from Nigeria or an Ethiopian queen. They get specific. Some have even discovered that using phrases from other languages like misika na mrembo in Swahili can unlock totally different, more positive sets of images in the AI's database. They use poetic language, and they get technical, demanding specific types of lighting. And this is just so cool. Remember how human artists solved that ashy skin problem with color theory? Well, creators are now teaching the AI to do the same thing with code words. They'll add a technical term like subsurface scattering to their prompt. This forces the AI to run a more complex calculation, to render the way light actually passes through skin and creates a natural glow from within. You're literally using the language of physics to command the AI to create soul. So, what's the end game here? What happens when you combine the deep cultural knowledge and vision of a human creator with the insane technical power of AI? Well, you start to forge a new horizon for animation. One that is way more global, way more diverse, and puts way more power into the hands of individual storytellers.
And this is not just a theory. It is happening. Right now, we are seeing an explosion of Black-owned studios that are becoming global powerhouses. You have Lionforge Entertainment, who won an Oscar for Hair Love. You have Kugali, a Pan-African studio that co-produced the Owaju series with Disney. And you even have Dart Stagio, a Black-owned anime studio operating out of Tokyo, Japan. The foundation is being built as we speak.
And this quote from Arthel Isom, the co-founder of Dart Stagio, really says it all. The ultimate goal here isn't to be in a constant battle against stereotypes. The goal is to get to a place where you can just tell a good story, period, where a character can be exactly who they're supposed to be, complex and real, without having to carry the weight of an entire community on their shoulders.
And that all leads to this incredible idea of a global synthesis, a future where we stop trying to cram art into neat little boxes, where the question isn't, is this Japanese anime or is this black animation? Instead, these amazing styles and powerful cultural voices begin to merge and blend, creating something totally new, totally exciting, and way more reflective of the world we actually live in.
So I want to leave you with one big final question to think about. As these powerful tools become available to everyone, and as all these cultures continue to mix and inspire each other, will we even have national genres in 20 years? Are we going to stop talking about anime versus cartoons and instead just have global animation? It's a pretty exciting future to think about. Thanks so much for watching.